Hi, I'm Kevin Hicks and welcome to my YouTube channel, The History Squad. And this is episode 5 of the 100 Years' War. This is the Battle of Neville's Cross, 17th of October, 1346. Now, if you missed any of the other previous episodes, you can find the playlist in the description. But let's move on. So Edward III defeats the King of France at the Battle of Crecy. A crushing defeat for the French. Our king now moves north and he lays siege to the town of Calais. So meanwhile in England, King David II of Scotland has invaded. Yeah, it's just north of Carlisle. This is all part of the old alliance between Scotland and France. The Scottish king has been urged by the French king, invade England, invade England. It will divert the English king's attention away from France. So he does. And even before he gets across the Scottish border to England, he has problems. This massive army, 30,000 men, is brought to a standstill with an argument between some of his noblemen. In fact, it comes to blows and one of his noblemen storms off with his army. Things don't go right from the beginning. However, he crosses the Scottish borders just north of the town of Carlisle. But he won't attack Carlisle because they've paid him money not to attack them. Instead, he heads towards a castle. So King David with his Scottish army move on and lay siege to the castle of Nevilles. They finally capture this castle and slaughter every male inside, even those they just simply surrendered. They took the women and children and enslaved them. Now, he moves on. He attacks the priory of Lanercost, ransacks it, steals everything, and then does the same at Hexham. Destroys the place. And as he's crossing over into the county of Durham, the night before he enters, King David of Scotland has a dream. Don't cross over into county of Durham. It is protected by St. Cuthbert, who happens to be the patron saint of that particular county. In spite of his dream, King David II of Scotland leads his army into County Durham and they burn, kill, loot, pillage everything in their path until eventually they make camp at what we now call Bear Park. It's not far from Durham and they have this enormous camp all set up and they will raid from the camp into the countryside, believing that there are no English soldiers left. Boy, are they in for a surprise. Edward III had ensured before he went to France that he did not have soldiers recruited from the northern counties. York, Lancashire, Cumbria, Durham, Northumbria. So that when King David came across that border, he just had no idea whatsoever that waiting for him was an entire English army. So the Scots settle down in Bear Park and send out raiding parties to ravage the land. And one such raiding party by the Earl of Douglas is led out towards the little town of Merrington. They are totally oblivious to what's coming the other way, an English army. They have absolutely no idea. Don't forget, they've been told there ain't no English left in England. That is, soldiers, yeah? Well, coming their way is a big old army. They don't see it, though. They hear it. Because as they're enjoying their looting and pillaging, there's a mist rolls over and they hear the English army and panic and ride straight into it. Wow, bang! Sir Robert Ogle, he leads his horse troops straight into the Scots and pursues them. Douglas, lucky enough to have a heavily armoured horse, gallops away with his retainers. Ogle has to stop, yeah, because his horse is exhausted. They reckon they killed 500 Scots by the sword. Meanwhile, back at Bear Park, Douglas bursts in on the king. The king is still drunk from the night before. He doesn't want to get out of bed. What are you talking about? But Douglas is sweating and he's obviously in a panic. And the king turns to him and says, there are no English here. And he gives off a whole list. He says, there's just monks and skinners, that kind of thing. There is no enemy here. Then confirmation arrives. There's an English army on its way. Panic. Now the Scots, drunk, hungover, have got to get themselves together and form an army. Meanwhile, back at the Scots camp, panic. They're trying to get themselves ready when some monks, a group of monks, Benedictine, turn up. They've come from Durham and they are talking about peace. But King David, in his wisdom, believes them to be spies. They've been sent to just frighten them. And he orders that their heads be cut off. But in the confusion, the monks, they probably heard what was going to happen, ran away. And they would watch the battle, which is about to commence. So to help us out here, I've got a map, and I've got to give some credits for this. John Fawkes and the excellent website of the BritishBattles.com. So the Scots have marched from Bear Park, all across farmland, some marshy land, up the hill. Moray is in the 1st Division, King David in the 2nd, and Stuart in the reserve. They come to the top of a rise here, but it's very narrow for them. They can't form their entire army. They've got to go down a little bit of a valley. It's a marshy bottom, and then up the other side to the English army that's waiting for them. You have Neville on the Scottish right, Percy there, he's in the centre. Then the Archbishop of York, he's at the main centre just behind them. And Balliol in reserve. Do you know, I never know if I've ever pronounced his name correctly. I'm going to give that another go. Balliol. Anyway, he's in reserve. And it's a standoff. The two armies face each other. The English most definitely have the best position. They can get lots of their troops formed out. The problem for the Scots is if they advance down, you have the marshy bottom, and then going up the steep rise towards the English, especially on the right side here, there is all kinds of pasture land and hedges, even the rumour that there was a low broken down wall that was in the way. So what we should do now is abandon the map and get on with the model. So here's my model of the extreme right wing of the Scottish army. Douglas is the first to advance, his right wing. Now, we don't understand why they advanced. Yeah, they come down the hill, they're coming up towards the English in this absolutely incredibly well positioned army. Thousands of bowmen up there. The king amassed millions of arrows in the north, stored in Durham Cathedral. I once read there was 3 million arrows stored there. So this is an army that is heavily armed, yeah? And they're ready and waiting. The Scots advance up the hill. Now they advance with their pikemen. This is the Scottish way of fighting with these great big long pikes. It's called a schiltron, and they had bowmen as well. And as they're advancing up the hill, there was this nobleman, and he was desperate to charge John Graham. Sir John Graham begs the King David, give me 500 horses and I will outflank the English. Well, he was refused. But he took his own retinue and he charged up the hill over on the right there, and he manages to push some of the bowmen back. But there is such withering shot from the bows, he fails. He turns, he runs. His horse is shot dead from underneath him. He survives the battle, but Graham is captured, and his head could be viewed on London Bridge. That's a bit of a grim thing, isn't it? He was captured, and then he was beheaded. But now what happens is this. The cavalry fall back. So I'm going to get rid of all these horses here. So bear with me, because they are not going to play any further part of the Scots. What's going to happen now is the Scottish army is going to advance up the hill through an absolute hail of arrows. And then they get to a great big wall. There was all kinds of things in the way. Hayricks, Some of their soldiers were exhausted, but the main body comes on with their schiltrons, which are absolutely useless unless they can close with the bowmen. So you've got these men trying to clamber over the wall. You've got men behind them that are exhausted, but they still manage to gather themselves together, bringing more and more men up when the English centre then attacks. So you have these poor Scottish soldiers have marched all the way up this hill. They get over the wall, they get past of whatever's there, and then as they're about to attack, the English centre comes down, men-at-arms, knights in armour. Meanwhile, the arrows are still pouring into the Scots. Over the other side of the battlefield, King David is having more success. He's managed to close with the army, but he's still been beaten back. And then the English pull off their master stroke. Their reserve under Balliol, their mounted cavalry that simply ride around the battlefield and charge in straight through the left flank of the Scottish army, coming all the way around. All of a sudden, the Scottish army is finding itself hemmed in. So the Scottish third wave, so I understand, was engaged and was in part of the big battle. But its commander with its retinue, Stuart, he ran away. To his disgrace, he ran all the way back to Scotland, not a mark on him. Meanwhile, the Scots fight on, and they fight on bravely. In the end, so the legend has it, there were barely 80 men protecting King David. Everybody else was either dead, wounded, or had run. Some of the chronicles say that David was captured, King David was captured on the field. Others say he was found by John Copeland after the battle because there were some bloody pursuits and some terror for the Scots with these English after them. Copeland actually saw a reflection in a river of somebody underneath the bridge, and he went down, and it was King David. King David had been shot twice in the face and once in the leg. He was badly wounded, but he put up a resistance. With his armoured fist, he punched Sir John Copeland in the face, gashing him open and knocking 2 teeth out. But Copeland would not let go of this Scottish king. And in fact, once the king was taken into custody properly, Copeland rode all the way to the south of England, got himself a ship across to Calais and reported to Edward III what had happened and that he had captured King David II of Scotland. He was awarded £500 pension every year. That's a fortune today, I can tell you. The story doesn't end there though. And this is so sad for me because I am English, but I'm also Scot. My family are from both sides of the border. And when I read the hatred, the history that goes on these things here, it's heartbreaking. But after this battle, the politicians basically take over. And although David is in custody or is a prisoner for many, many years, there was eventually peace. But we'll see how that goes, because my next film has got to be about the siege of Calais. And just to finish on a little, I suppose, bit of a funny note, King David II of Scotland had a nickname. He was known as David the Defecator because when he was christened, he pooped into the water. So, in modern English, I suppose he would be David II of Scotland, David the Pooper. So, I hope you enjoyed our film. Yeah, it's taken a bit of sorting out because it's a subject that I'm not familiar with. So, I've been learning myself, yeah? So, if you've enjoyed it, thumbs up. If you're a subscriber, hey, thanks a million. And keep those comments coming. If you are new to this channel, then subscribe. Ding that bell. Have some fun with history. But for now, thank you very much. Bye-bye.